Hello, this is HQ Cap back with another Warbits video. We're going to be doing a tier list today. I went on tiermaker.com and made a list of the powers in Warbits. I ranked them, or we're going to be ranking them from platinum on the top, gold, silver, and bronze, just like the campaign level rankings. And then at the bottom we have a purple tier, the U tier, which is like unused. And it's purple because that's the bad guy's color in the Warbits campaign. I got the powers listed below. There's 16 total powers. We'll just go over them pretty briefly and give some reasons why I think they're ranked where they are. So starting with Range Booster. Range Booster starts off, it's a cost of 10 charges, so it's a fairly early power, one of the lower powers in terms of cost, but it's pretty good. It's going to be gold tier. It's pretty good because it increases the firepower of all your ranged units by 25% and gives them a bonus attack range. So if your opponent's planning around your ranged units and places units outside your range, you can now get the jump on them, surprise them, take out some key units that they thought were safe. It's great because it affects both infantry and mech range units, so your rangers get a bonus from this, and that can kind of help them, as they're normally not too powerful versus vehicles, but this can bump up their attack and let you do some good damage versus vehicles and air units for that matter. A ranger with the range booster can really start hitting air units pretty hard. It also affects the anti-air range unit, which isn't seen that much in Warbits, but it can be pretty useful, especially in those late game scenarios. If your opponent has a carrier out and has some powerful units in there, you can really deal a ton of damage to your opponent, which I've been able to pull off in the past. I had a anti-air unit sitting back. They put a carrier outside of range, but then I pop range booster, and then I kill the carrier with 2 gunners in it. So that was 14 plus, that was over 2,000 or 20,000 points of units killed in one shot. So it can be really effective if you get some clutch plays off. So that's why it's gold. Raise is a power that really you only see late game, and you could put it in bronze or unused. I'll go ahead and put it in bronze. It's an okay power. It will do things. It will let you finish a game earlier than you normally would, but we're going to put it in purple. We're going to put it in the unranked here because you really aren't going to use this to get an advantage. You're using this to close out a game. The game's already won. The power really doesn't affect the game overall. Sure, dealing 2.5 times the amount of damage to units on structures is great, but this power costs 25 points to use. And there's other powers in the game that you could have used earlier to kind of turn the game around if you need to. And if this is the power you're saving up for, your opponent's going to steamroll you or get on top of you before you're able to get in a position to use this effectively. So it's really a good power for closing out games, but in this tier list, we're going to rank them based on their usefulness to kind of turn the game around or at least give you an advantage. So if you're using this power, you've already won the game, you already have an advantage, or you've already lost and you just have too much power and you're spending it on one last try. Mech Booster is pretty good. Direct mech units gain 25% firepower. It's almost as good as Range Booster if you look at the power, but it doesn't have a bonus, so it has to go lower. If this had a +1 movement range, some other bonus, maybe a further increase in firepower, it would be higher up. But it only affects mech units, and the mech units you're really going to see are probes, heavy mechs sometimes, but mostly light mechs and gunners. And so the light mechs and gunners get a boost, and the probe, but the probe is going to be falling off late game. You're not going to have a lot of those around, and really the plus 25% firepower on a probe isn't that great. The gunner mostly one-shots units it's good against, air units and infantry, so it doesn't get a huge boost. It can now one-shot, with this power activated, a heavy infantry, but you're not going to have a lot of those mech units to really get this firepower bonus out. So this is an okay power if you have a bunch of mech units, but it's unlikely that you're going to be in this situation to use that power effectively. It also costs 10 charges, just like the range booster, and so it's going to be ranked just below range booster in silver tier. Medic. Now this is an interesting power. I'm putting it at bronze, but with an asterisk. Most games you'll never see this power. To pull this power off and make it a really useful power, you need a lot of APCs, and most maps have airports, so you're not really building a lot of APCs to transport your infantry. You're mostly building transport copters, or dropships as they're called. It costs 15 charges, and it allows units resupplied by APCs to gain 3 health. So if you have a lot of APCs, you can really heal up your entire army. So if you have a lot of damage units, and they're expensive units like mechs, or even some heavy mechs or artillery in there, maybe a ballista that's damaged, you can really get a lot of value out of this power. And I've played games where my opponents used this, and my mind kind of got blown by how effective it was. I think I ended up winning that game still, but I can't remember. He might have won. But it was insane. He had 3 or 4 APCs, and he healed up his whole front line, plus some units in the back. And you can kind of chain things, so 2 APCs can resupply the same unit. So you could get a unit from almost 2 health back to full if you get 3 APCs around it. And if that unit's a heavy mech that costs 14,000, then that's huge value. But most of the time you're not going to see it. It's hard to pull off, and it really requires a late game scenario where 2 players are evenly matched and very good at the game to really see this power useful. And even then it's situational. So that's why it's in bronze, with that asterisk of it can be almost a platinum tiered power in certain situations. Now here's an actual platinum tier power. Heavy bullets cost 20 charges. So if you remember, raise costs 25 charges to deal 2.5 damage to all units on structures. Heavy bullets cost 20 and allows infantry to deal double damage. And this is why heavy bullets is just better than raise. In Warbits, you're generally going to have a lot of infantry. Infantry are cheap. They do tons of damage already with the heavy infantry and the ranger, and the heavy bullet just magnifies that damage. Because heavy bullets applies to so many units in your army, it's incredibly useful, and you'll likely, when you use heavy bullets later in the game, be able to recharge and use heavy bullets again either on the next turn or a turn later. So it chains into itself. It's the best power in the game. I'm sure this is going to get nerfed or just eliminated in Warbits Plus, but for now, heavy bullets is definitely the top tier power. We even had a tournament where we eliminated heavy bullets. We said no one could use it because it's so good. The next one, Second Chance, is also costs 20, and it can be useful. I'm going to put it in bronze tier. So for 20 charges, all air units can move again, but have reduced firepower. And so when you think of this power, you're thinking about the bombers, the gunships, and the fighters. But some people forget that the transport units for air units are actually some of the best units in the game. And so the Second Chance can actually allow you to transport units way across the map. You can even get a sneaky capture off on some maps with this power, where you take a transport unit and just drive it straight to the HQ, and then you fly some more transports over, unload a whole bunch of units, and now you've surrounded their HQ. And if they don't have an infantry or something on that HQ defending it, they may lose the game just because you surrounded their HQ and are capping, and they can't do anything about it. The bombers, the fighters, the gunships, they're not great units in Warbits because they cost so much, and there's a lot of counters to them that normally are already out on the map. So Second Chance for the bombers, the gunners, and the fighters, it's not that great, but the transport units make it a decent power. So we're going to put it in bronze because it costs a lot and it's situational at best. Diplomacy, this power costs 20 charges. Actually, sorry, 25 charges. This is the other 25 charge power. And infantry capture non-HQ structures twice as fast. So this sounds great, but it's going to go in the purple category. Because again, if you're using your infantry to double cap, why not just use heavy bullets and gain your power back and just destroy the enemy and then take his structures after he's dead? Diplomacy really doesn't have a place even considering raise is down here. Diplomacy is actually, I think, worse, as it doesn't let you close a game out faster. If you're closing the game out and you want to use diplomacy, you're just going to capture his structures, and then he's going to kill your units with the units he has left. So diplomacy could theoretically be used in a middle game situation to try to capture a bunch of properties. But again, your opponent's just going to destroy those units you use to capture properties and gain power from them. So it's hard to use diplomacy aggressively, and it's definitely not a defensive power. So there's not a huge place for it, and that high cost and charges just doesn't leave any room for it other than the bottom tier. Road Warrior costs 15 charges, and allows mechs to have a plus 75% increased firepower on roads. So that sounds great. In campaign, this power is great because you can position your units where you want them, fire from the road, and you just destroy things, especially with ranged units. If you have an artillery, a ballista on a road, this power is great. But in 1v1, there's not a lot of maps that have a ton of roads, and you really don't want to be putting your units on roads because of the low or no armor value they get from it. And so it's going to go in bronze tier. It can be useful, but most time you're using this power, it's for one unit that's on a road that you really need to get some damage off with. And in that situation, there's probably better powers to use. If range booster wasn't a thing, I think Road Warrior would be a good option for ranged units, but range booster is just better and costs less. So Road Warrior really is super situational. It has some uses, but doesn't deserve any better than bronze. We're going to skip over Blitz. We're going to put Blitz back at towards the end. We're going to go with Guardian next. And this is another 15 cost power. It probably deserves to be in the purple category, but we're going to give it a bronze. 15 to make transports immune to attacks. So again, a power that's not going to be utilized a lot, rarely be seen, but if you get a sneaky move off, and especially this is more Fog of War, I should have said that ahead of time. This is all in a Fog of War 1v1 ranking. And Guardian can be pretty useful in Fog of War. If your opponent's not looking at what's going on and you sneak a transport and surround his HQ with transport copters or, APCs and drop an infantry on there, there's not a lot he can do. The only thing you have to hope for is that he doesn't have a ranger and a transport that's coming to snipe your infantry. And people have pulled it off. I've used it before and it's worked. It's difficult to pull off against a good opponent, but it can be done. It can also be used to delay things in the middle of the game. Again, if you're blocking areas off with transports and trying to delay, there's generally a better power out there to use, but sometimes it can, prevent an opponent from pushing too hard on a turn and get you a chance to get some breathing room. The only issue is you're spending 15 charges, and that's quite a bit in Warbits. The next one, Trailblazer. So all terrain types have a cost of 1. This is going to be a silver tier. I actually do not use this power a lot, and it may deserve a bronze tier, but it can be useful, especially if your opponent, just like we talked with range booster, place some units just outside your range, and now you have the jump on them. Or on a map where there's lots of terrain that slows down your mechs, this can be a great power to get things through. As now if there's 2 forests your units running through, slowing them down by 2 movement, now they all cost 1 and it can move really far. So it can be great. It also affects mountains. So rangers and infantry now can move over those mountains with only 1 cost of movement. It costs 10 points or 10 charges. So it's a middle tier for cost, middle to lower tier, which is why it gets silver. It's pretty efficient for its cost and can let you get a sneaky playoff here and there, and is fairly useful for that reason. Air Booster, air units gain 25% firepower and 2% movement. So this power costs 10, just like the Mech Booster and the Range Booster and the Trailblazer. It's going to be a silver, and not for the reason you think. Again, just like the other air power second chance, you immediately jump to the bombers, the fighters, the gunships. That's really not why this power is useful. There's going to be some situations where your transport units are just out of range of where you need to be, and getting them into that position can really change a game or give you an advantage. So if you have a bunch of transport copters that need to get either forward to drop off infantry or backwards out of range of the enemy and to load up more units, this power can actually be okay. It's not a great power, and it's kind of going to end up being towards the end of the silver powers, but it is useful, and if you do have a gunship for some reason on the map, it can be pretty good, as the gunship will now be able to deal some serious damage to pretty much anything it faces. This power is pretty much useless for bombers, as bombers already one-shot any unit they come up with just about, and same for fighters. Fighters one-hit just about every air unit, and it's not very good for those units. So the plus 15% firepower really doesn't come into a play here. It's all about that plus 2 movement. Headshot. Now this power is insane. This power I'm going to put as platinum. It's not as good as heavy bullets, but it is insane. It costs 15, so it's cheaper than heavy bullets, and rangers destroy infantry units with a single attack. So yes, a 1 HP ranger can kill a full HP infantry. And this power is great because of the power of infantry in Warbits. Your opponent is generally going to have a lot of infantry if they're playing the map right. Some maps require less infantry, but most you're going to need infantry out there capping things, doing damage. And rangers in position can just decimate an opponent's force with this power. This power can turn games around and win you a game when you were previously losing or on the back foot. That's what platinum category is for. Powers that just turn, you can be losing, you apply the power well, now you're winning the game. And because Headshot's so strong, you can chain it into itself. It's strong and it only costs 15, so if you get a lot of shots off in one round on infantry, you can pop Headshot the next turn or just regen those charges up and pull a heavy bullets play in following rounds. It can also be really useful if you notice your opponent getting ready to use heavy bullets on you, pop a headshot, take out his heavy infantry. Now he's sitting there with his plan of using heavy bullets and not a lot of units to utilize it with. So headshot is platinum tier for that reason. Cash out. You've seen me use this power in a couple games, well, in the last video. I've used this pretty much, I think I actually used this in most of my games recently. Normally I don't rely on it that much, but I've just found myself using it recently more, the way the games have played. It's a gold tier. It costs 10 charges, and you get 5,000 in cash, which doesn't sound like a lot, but because you normally start with low funds, and if your opponent tries to aggressively push towards you and you're able to kill some units early on, getting a cash out can really let you get either more infantry on the map, get those infantry transports, or get a support unit like I did in my last match. Getting that gunner out early, or those light mechs, just makes things way easier. This power lets you kind of chain into another power. As you're getting powerful units out, you're going to gain more charges because you have those units. So it's not a direct chain like heavy bullets or headshot where you're killing a bunch of enemy units, gaining more power. Cash out's more a passive way to do that. You're going to get better units out, so then you're going to get more power back as an investment. And you saw that in my last game versus my opponent. I used cash out. I was down in power, but because I had better units on the map, I was able to catch back up in power pretty quickly. And so that's another thing to look in this tier list. Can your power chain into itself? And we'll see those top tier powers can. The heavy bullets can, headshot can, range booster certainly can if you have a lot of ranged units, and cash out passively does. These bottom powers can't really do that. Mech booster, you're not really chaining. Trailblazer, definitely not. These are all more sneaky plays. And then the bottom tier, you know, they're bottom tier. That brings us to Blitz. So Blitz costs 15, and mechs gain +2 movement. This sounds pretty good. I mean, +2 movement's great. You can get into positions that you weren't expected to be in, just like this air booster. Get there, surprise units, move your APC further, get those infantry units in places they normally couldn't have been. However, because it costs 15, and because Trailblazer is already a thing, it's actually a purple tier. and unranked, unusable. You should not use this. There is probably a niche scenario where this is okay to use, but Trailblazer is generally just better. Blitz only affects mechs. Trailblazer affects all your infantry and all your mechs. Blitz is +2 movement. Trailblazer's reducing terrain by 1 or down to 1. And generally on maps, these are the same because there'll be a forest, some dirt. There'll be various terrain features in the way of your mechs that'll basically make it that Blitz is getting you the same range of movement as Trailblazer. And Trailblazer's 10, while Blitz is 15. So the only reason, Blitz would have been a bronze, but because Trailblazer is a thing, it's kind of an unusable power because it just doesn't do as much as does the same as Trailblazer for more cost. That brings us to Infantry Booster. This is the cheapest power in the game. It costs 5 charges. And this allows your infantry to capture buildings 50% faster. This, while sounding not that great, is actually a gold tier power. This power can straight up win you the game if your opponent doesn't know the map, doesn't open correctly, or just doesn't see your infantry booster coming. I'll try to post some videos highlighting some of these powers that are useful and show you how to use them, but I have a recent game where I just won because I got my infantry ASAP, like on 2 properties, and my opponent shows up a turn later and can't kill me before I capture it. And so the real ideal way to use infantry booster is to have an infantry capturing a building. You use it the first turn of their capture, so they gain the plus 50%. So they take it from a 20 to a 5 as they gain that 5 bonus capturing points. And so they're capturing 15 points worth. And then the next turn, as long as they don't have a powerful unit attacking you, like a gunner or a mech, something like that, then you're fine. If it's a probe, another infantry, they cannot stop you. They need multiple units to stop you from capturing. So that's in the early game. So you can get a income advantage, which then chains into more power as you're going to have better units and preventing them from getting better units out. Or you can use it in the middle of the game, kind of like you saw in my last game, where you'll need multiple infantry ready to capture on one turn. And if you're capturing 3 or plus more structures, I think it's worth it. And then your opponent really has to struggle to apply pressure on all those 3 points and will likely have to use a powerful unit to target your infantry capturing, which then leaves their more powerful unit exposed, and you can just clean them up. So you're not necessarily going for a capture per se in the middle of the game with infantry booster. You're looking to apply pressure and make your opponent have to come out of his position and lose some units from this simple 5 cost charge. And you saw also in the last game, if someone attacks me while I'm capturing and I still have 8 points of health on my unit and I previously captured 10, then boom, I can pop this and still capture in 2 turns, as I've had 10 points of capture. Now I'm at 8. With the infantry booster, I'm now capturing 12, so that's 22 total. Plenty to capture that structure. And so infantry booster is gold tier for those reasons. Then we come to ship it. Ship it costs 20. Units that build can move after being built. So that's going to be a purple tier. And the reason for that is either you're using this while losing the game and you're just kind of throwing a bunch of units out at the end of the game to, do some damage to your opponent before you surrender, before he kills you. Or there is one time where I've seen this used, and I've played a match. This is actually versus Leomar, where he's on knife fight, and he had an advantage from early on. He captured one of my buildings, and I had come back. I had built a ballista. I had been killing his units. He had been saving up funds because he had an income advantage the entire game, and he has just a ridiculous amount of funds at the end and uses ship it to just pump out, 4 or 5 mech units plus a transport. And so it can be used to win a game, but that's a game you probably should have already won utilizing other powers in the game. And it has to be on a small map. If this power is going to do anything, it has to be on a small map. You have to have a huge income advantage. And normally, or every single time in that situation, there's another power you should have used to attack your opponent and gain the advantage back. And so that's why Ship It is in the purple category. Again, it's a high cost, costs 20. And so there's really other powers you should have used beforehand, in my opinion, to push your opponent back. And the ship it is kind of like it's the opposite of race. It's like the player that's losing kind of just spits out a bunch of units at the end of the game. And so this is the overview. We'll just run through things, and I'll kind of rank them in their categories. So this platinum tier heavy bullets is definitely above headshot, range booster. I'm gonna actually put infantry booster at the top of gold. And yeah, these powers are all pretty similar. It's kind of hard to distinguish between them, but that looks about right. In this category, yeah, we'll put this one here. Let's do this. So mech booster slightly better than air booster, just because air booster is pretty situational. Trailblazer also pretty situational, and mech booster, there are going to be matches where this is a useful ability from time to time. Medic, second chance, road warrior, guardian. I'm gonna actually put this one's hard to choose. Second chance is gonna be in the top. Medic. Actually, I'm gonna put medic on the top because it can be so insane late game. Second chance with a sneaky capture. We'll put guardian, and I just have never. I've used road warrior maybe once or twice. Yeah, these ones are all pretty similar. And at the bottom category, raise is going to be top. Diplomacy, blitz can be over here. Ship it. Diplomacy is just going to be last. Ship it's better slightly. So yeah, that's my tier list. I would love to see your guys' tier list. Either post them here in the comments with links, or jump over on the Discord. I hope to see some people posting in the Discord their tier lists, because I think this is pretty fun. Obviously, I plan on doing a unit tier list sometime in the future. If you guys disagree with my tier list, please let me know, because I definitely don't know everything. But I think this is a pretty standard tier list. Some powers that I haven't used a lot that I would like to hear stories about are definitely the Road Warrior. That one, it's so good for the 75% firepower, but it's tough to like set up with the roads. If anybody has a crazy medic story like I did, I'd love to hear that one. Or Guardian captures. Second chance, if anybody's seen some craziness with second chance stuff, that would be cool too. I guess you could have had a situation where a fighter like goes in and kills some air units that have the transports, like kills 2 carriers in one turn. That would be insane. What are the other powers that would have been cool to see? If anybody's seen diplomacy used in an aggressive way that's been good, let me know. Same with raise. Other than cleaning out the end of a game, have you seen raise be used to turn a game around or win a game that was previously being lost? I think everybody's going to have heavy bullets, headshot stories. But yeah, that's my tier list. I'll be trying to I want to make some videos going into some details with some of the more interesting powers, just to show how they can be used to get a advantage. That's about it for me. Again, comment your tier list below. Comment any suggestions, some improvements to my tier list. Give the video a like if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.